As you're looking through the internet, seeing everyone else catching fish, it's easy to ask, what baits are they using? What lakes are they at? And what secrets do they have? The real secret to fishing is understanding the fish, becoming confident in tactics, and knowing where to find them. On this episode of Secrets to Fishing, Peter breaks down the details that are needed to find late-season trophy pike. Next, Morgan shares 3 things each angler should understand about using a depth finder while ice fishing. Finally, Peter walks through the basic tackle and gear to consider when putting together a shore fishing bucket. This episode is presented by ShopMissouriSecrets.com and North Country Marine and Motorsports.
With this coronavirus, health officials continuing to urge people to stay at home.
Hunting Big Pike is brought to you by ShopMissouriSecrets.com.
Well, it's finally that time of year again, where we're finishing up this midwinter bite and we're moving on to late ice. And for us, that means hunting for big pike on Lake Sakakawea. Now we're going to go through some of the little details that you need to know to put yourself on the fish of a lifetime. So let's get into it. The first thing you need to know is, what are these big pike doing right now and why exactly are they doing it? So let's take a look at the map. During January and February, these big fish can be found in and around the main part of the reservoir, usually chasing food. But at the end of February to beginning of March, instinct starts to take over, and they start moving toward their spring spawning grounds, which is usually where warm spring runoff is flowing into the lake. So now that we know where they're coming from and where they're going, it's time to pick out a spot to fish. When it comes to catching these big pike on these reservoirs, you can put a tip about almost anywhere and have the chance of catching a giant fish. But there are a few key locations that you can look for that will greatly increase your odds of catching the fish of a lifetime. The first location we like to target are saddles between 2 large flats. The next location, and our favorite, is fishing creek channels. And finally, fishing shallow water along shorelines. Now what's nice about these 3 locations is they naturally concentrate fish as they travel to their spring spawning grounds. Now this next part requires a little bit of observation when you're out on the ice. If you haven't been following these big fish throughout the winter, your best bet is to start at the spawning location and work your way back until you find them. While everything is still frozen over, these big pike are traveling lower in the water column looking up for food. This is why saddles and channels tend to produce more. But as soon as the shorelines start to thaw out and open up, even just a little bit, these pike will move up shallower and start traveling in as little as 1 foot of water. Because of this, there are a few places we like to place our bait. Right under the ice, halfway down, and about 3 to 6 feet off the bottom. Now remember, don't forget to listen to the fish. If you start catching fish on one type of bait, adjust your other presentations accordingly so you can start catching more fish. Now, all of this information holds true even past late ice. 1 week, you can be having a ton of fun on the ice with these big predators, and literally a couple of days later, you can be on shore catching fish open water. Finally, there are a few things to remember. First, a realistic goal is to hope for 1 big fish a day. So this is a great time to take friends and family out and enjoy the beautiful spring weather. Next is you have to respect these big fish. If you're not going to eat it or put a trophy fish on the wall, return them back to the water, let them spawn, and give someone else the chance to catch a big fish. And last but not least, take the time to enjoy yourself during the beautiful spring while you chase your fish of a lifetime.
Everybody's been asking what Peter's going to do now that he's done with high school. Well, let me tell you about Sakakawea State University, the official educational choice of Secrets to Fishing TV.
How old do you have to be to go to Sakakawea State University?
Well, Cohen, I started when I was 5, and at Sakakawea State University, a lot of people have learned what it takes to stay in schools.
I learned patience and to always stay humble at Sakakawea State University.
Wait, did somebody say Sakakawea State University? Most important thing, stay in schools.
I've earned money because I learned to stay in schools.
We wouldn't be where we are today if we hadn't stayed in school.
What do I have to do to stay in schools?
All you gotta do is go to Sakakawea State University Facebook page and learn all sorts of fish facts, and then go fishing.
Hi, Peter. Hey, I wish I went to Sakakawea State University.
I wish my kid would have picked Sakakawea State University.
Sakakawea State University, the official Fish Facts Facebook page and clothing line of Secrets to Fishing TV.
I invented Sakakawea State University.
This ice fishing experience is brought to you by Eskimo. We have the tools.
It doesn't matter the size, shape, age, or price of your ice fishing graph, there are 3 things you need to know to start catching fish. So when you're setting the gain on a flasher, it's easiest to start about halfway and then turn your gain down till you only see your lure. Now when you're using an LCD, you're going to be changing the sensitivity, which is just a fancy name for your gain. When you're working with an LCD, start with a low sensitivity and work your way up slowly until you can see your lure. So as you're letting your line down, simply look for anything that's red or orange, and that's a fish. And all you have to do is put your bait in front of the fish, and that's connecting the dots. We're in shallow water today, but it doesn't matter where the fish is in the water column. Got him. And now, let's take a look at the 3rd thing you need to know to catch fish. So today, we've been catching a lot of perch at the bottom, so what I've been doing is dropping my line and then slowly bringing it up and keep away. If they stop following, drop it to the bottom and start doing it again. See that red and orange right on that brown? That's the fish. So take the time to learn how to set your gain, connect the dots, and play keep away, and you will catch more fish.
So a lot of people have been asking us over the years, how do we do our product reviews with Missouri Secrets Tackle? And it's pretty simple. A company will approach us with some product or equipment they'd like to see us use and test in the field, and if we like it, we'll set up a review just like this and tell you guys all about it. But if we don't like the product, we'll send a detailed list of what we don't like and what we think could be improved on. What's important for you, the viewer, is that these reviews are completely independent and we do not accept any form of money or sponsorship for anything we say or do in these reviews. With all that being said, today we're going to go through the brand new ice fishing rods from Cast King along with the reels that we've been using with them this past winter. These rods come in 2 different styles. This blue one is the linear ice fiberglass rod, and this black one is the hard water graphite rod, and the features in these rods are pretty unique. First, these rods are affordable enough that a new ice angler can grab a few without breaking the bank, yet they're high enough quality that an experienced angler is going to enjoy using them. When you open the package, you're going to find 3 pieces. The main handle and then 2 tips, a medium light power and a medium power. Now for the experienced angler watching, I know you're saying to yourself that a 2-piece ice fishing rod isn't going to work. And we thought the same thing when we first started with them. But over the winter, there's a few things we grew to enjoy about having these 2-piece rods. First, the guides on these rods are big enough that most small jigs and snaps are going to fit through them without you having to retie. It was more convenient than we thought, being able to switch out tips each day depending on what we want to catch. Yes, the tip will spin occasionally, but for us, the benefit outweighed this minor inconvenience. One thing we thought for sure would happen was a loss of sensitivity because they're 2-piece rods. But we're surprised with how much sensitivity even the fiberglass rods have. The other nice thing about these rods is having that extra tip. When Dad dropped the jig box on one and broke it, we just swapped it out. We paired these rods with the Cast King Centron 500 reel, which is heavier than your typical ice reel, but grew to enjoy the balance that they provide. We spooled up these reels with our favorite braid and monofilament lines, and together they all worked pretty well. These Covert Series rods give young and new ice anglers multiple options at an affordable price, yet are high enough quality that the experienced angler will enjoy catching fish with them.
This secret is brought to you by North Country Marine and Motorsports.
A lot of people ask us, what's the right boat to buy? But the better question is, what's the right boat for you? Here's a list of questions to take a look at when you're picking out your first boat. How much can I afford? Will my vehicle be able to pull the boat I'm looking at? Does fuel efficiency matter for both the vehicle and boat? What distance do I plan on traveling by boat each trip? Am I going to be fishing on big lakes, small lakes, or rivers? How fast do I want to go when moving from spot to spot? What motor options do I need for my fishing techniques? How much time do I plan on spending in the boat each day? What are the roughest weather conditions I plan to fish in? What size boat does my boat ramp accommodate? How much room do I need for people? And how much room do I need for equipment? So take the time to come up with some honest answers to these questions so you will have the accurate information needed to pick out your first boat.
Building a Shore Kit is brought to you by Brewer Agri Outdoors.
Whether you're getting back into it or just getting started with fishing, it can be pretty overwhelming trying to figure out what tackle to use and what you should have on hand. Despite what you see on TV, most of the fishing done in the US is actually done from shore. So today, we're going to go through and build a simple, affordable, and yet effective tackle box that you can take on shore and catch fish with. Let's start things off with some terminal tackle, and this includes a few sizes of split shot, egg and walking sinkers, snaps, snap swivels, and if you're going to go after toothy critters like pike, get some steel leaders. And then having a few sizes of Aberdeen hooks, which we have found to be pretty versatile. Next is pick up a few bobbers in different sizes and styles. If you're going to fish shallow, your standard spring bobber will do the trick. But slip bobbers will allow you to fish in almost any depth. And if you're going to pick up some slip bobbers, Make sure you grab some beads and bobber stops and you're good to go. Now that we have all of our terminal tackle together, let's take a look at jigs. The two main types are floating and sinking jigs, and as you can see here, they come in a wide array of sizes and colors, so a good starting point is to pick out a couple of sizes and a handful of colors. When fishing with floating jigs, live bait is the way to go, but when fishing with sinking jigs, plastics are also a good option, so let's take a look at some things to consider. For panfish and trout, small plastics that imitate the critters in the water are a good starting point. But if you want to go after larger fish like bass, pike, and walleye, a handful of curly-tail grubs and paddle tails are the way to go. And don't be afraid to go with some larger plastics like this big swim bait and stickworm, which can be used on a jig head or a plain hook, regardless of how weedy it is. So now that we've got the basics covered, let's take a look at a few things that aren't necessary but are well worth the look. When picking out crankbaits for shore fishing, we first like to start with floating crankbaits, then move to suspending crankbaits, which don't sink or float when you stop reeling them, and finally countdown crankbaits, which sink roughly 1 foot per second until you start reeling them in. It doesn't matter what shape or size your crankbait is. What matters is that you know how they work and what they do underwater, like this floating, deep diving shad bait that rattles. The final kind of crankbait is a lipless crankbait, which can be casted a long way and once in the water will sink, but when you retrieve it, it will come straight to you. Spoons are often overlooked and considered old school, but still get the job done for almost all species. So pick out the size, shape, and color that you think will work best for the fish you're targeting. Now the last thing to consider are spinners. Whether it's an inline spinner like this or a classic spinnerbait like this, having 1 or 2 in your tackle box is well worth it. So now that your tackle box is all ready to go, here's the last things you'll need. A bucket, a few rod holders, and then an affordable rod and reel with 6 to 10 pound test line depending on what size fish you want to catch. And now, all you have to do is go fishing.
This week's Leaving Ripples is brought to you by MPR Models.
You can have all the passion in the world for something and achieve absolutely nothing. However, when you fuse passion with hard work and integrity, you will draw together a group that can change the world. A group that will leave ripples for generations to come.
Thank you to these great partners for making Secrets to Fishing possible.